Imagine waking up to a world where the sun never truly rises, where the sky is neither day nor night, just a sickly twilight haze. Crops wither, livestock die, and an unshakable dread settles over the land. This was not the end of the world, but for those who lived through it, it must have felt like it. The year was 536 AD. Historians call it the worst year in human history to be alive. A year when nature itself seemed to turn against humanity. But what caused this global catastrophe? And why did it bring civilizations to their knees? It began with a fog, not the kind that rolls in from the sea and burns away by noon. No, this was something far more sinister. Byzantine historian Procopius wrote of a dark, unending gloom that blotted out the sun for months. It gave no light, he said, only a faint ghostly glow, like an eclipse that refused to end. Across the world, from Europe to China, records tell the same story. The sun dimmed, temperatures plummeted, and with no sunlight, crops failed. Famine spread like a shadow. But what caused this darkness? For centuries, it remained one of history's greatest mysteries, until science uncovered the terrifying truth. In the 1990s, ice cores drilled deep into Greenland's glaciers revealed something astonishing: tiny particles of volcanic glass, trapped for over 1,500 years. The evidence was undeniable. A massive volcanic eruption somewhere on Earth had catapulted millions of tons of ash and sulfur into the stratosphere. This wasn't just any eruption. This was a super colossal event, one of the most violent in recorded history. Scientists now believe the culprit was Ilopango in El Salvador, or perhaps Krakatoa's ancient ancestor. Wherever it was, its effects were apocalyptic. The ash cloud wrapped the earth in a shroud. Sunlight couldn't penetrate. Global temperatures dropped by up to 2.5 degrees Celsius. Summer never came. And then things got worse. With famine came desperation. With desperation, chaos. In Ireland, chronicles report a failure of bread from 536 to 539. In China, snow fell in August. Starving peasants ate mulberry leaves, even white clay, anything to fill their stomachs. But hunger was only the beginning. Weakened by malnutrition, people fell prey to disease. Then, in 541, the Plague of Justinian arrived, a terrifying pandemic that wiped out millions. Some say it was the first appearance of the Black Death. This was no ordinary disaster. This was a convergence of catastrophes, a perfect storm of suffering, and for those who endured it, there was no escape, only survival. But how did humanity recover? And what lessons does this forgotten tragedy hold for us today? The answers lie ahead. By the year 541 AD, the world was already broken. 5 years of unrelenting darkness, 5 years of starvation, cold, and despair. But just when it seemed things could not get worse, death arrived by ship. It came first to the great port cities, Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch. A sickness unlike any the world had seen. Victims woke feverish, their bodies swelling with hideous black boils. Within days, they were dead. Some said God had abandoned mankind. Others whispered of a curse older than time itself. History remembers it as the Plague of Justinian, but for those who lived through it, it was simply the end. In Constantinople, the heart of the Roman Empire, Emperor Justinian watched in horror as his capital descended into madness. The historian Procopius, an eyewitness, wrote that at its peak, the plague killed 10,000 people a day. The dead piled so high they were thrown into mass graves, or simply tossed over the city walls. Justinian himself fell ill. Boils erupted across his body. For weeks, the fate of an empire hung in the balance as its ruler teetered between life and death. Miraculously, he survived, but his empire would never recover. This was no ordinary disease. Modern DNA analysis confirms it was Yersinia pestis, the same bacterium that would later cause the Black Death. Carried by fleas on rats, it raced along trade routes, killing an estimated 25 to 50 million people. In some regions, half the population simply vanished. The world of 536 had already been fragile. Rome's Western Empire had fallen decades earlier. The East was barely holding on. Now, With fields barren and cities choked with corpses, the threads of society began to unravel. In Ireland, monks chronicled a great mortality that left villages empty. In Persia, the Sasanian Empire buckled under food shortages and revolts. Even China, reeling from its own disasters, faced waves of refugees and rebellion. Trade collapsed, gold lost its value, and in the silence left by the dying, something new began to stir. Historians argue whether the 6th century marked the true beginning of the Dark Ages. But one thing is certain: the world after 536 was unrecognizable. Rome's dream of reuniting its empire died with the plague. The balance of power shifted forever. In the east, Justinian's conquest crumbled. The Lombards invaded Italy. The Slavs poured into the Balkans, and in the ashes of the old world, petty kingdoms rose, fragile, isolated, and forever wary of the sky. But the most chilling question remains: could it happen again? The survivors of 536 would never know the true cause of their suffering. They only knew the sun had failed them, and death had come riding in on the wind. But the worst was yet to come. For centuries, the horrors of 536 AD remained a mystery, a dark age within the Dark Ages. But here, locked in ice older than the pyramids, lay the truth. A truth written not in ink, but in ash. This thin, dark line, volcanic sulfur, the fingerprint of catastrophe. And when scientists traced its origin, they uncovered an apocalypse written in the sky. In the 1980s, climatologists studying these ice cores noticed something bizarre: 2 massive spikes of sulfuric acid, one in 536 and another in 540. 2 eruptions, back to back, the 1-2 punch that strangled the 6th century. But where did they come from? The suspects were scattered across the world. Ilopango in El Salvador, whose eruption 200 years earlier had been catastrophic. The mysterious, unknown volcano 536 in Iceland or Alaska, or perhaps Krakatoa's ancient ancestor, sleeping beneath the Sunda Strait. Then, in 2018, a breakthrough. Tree rings from Mongolia matched the ice cores. The chemistry pointed to Tierra Blanca Joven, a volcano so violent it buried entire Mayan cities under white ash. But the second eruption? That secret still lies frozen, waiting. The combined effect was beyond comprehension. Global temperatures plummeted for over a decade. Snow fell in July. Crops failed year after year. And the cold changed everything. In Scandinavia, where summers never warmed, entire villages were abandoned. In the Alps, glaciers advanced for the first time in millennia. Even the mighty Yangtze River froze solid. But the most terrifying discovery? This wasn't unique. Tree rings and ice cores reveal a pattern. A 2,400-year cycle of volcanic winters. The last one hit in 536. The next is overdue. Yet against all odds, humanity endured. How? The answers are carved in bone and buried in peat bogs. They adapted. In Ireland, people switched from wheat to hardier barley. In Constantinople, Justinian lowered taxes and imported Egyptian grain. And in the frozen north, they did something extraordinary. They moved. The Norse sagas tell of the Fimbulwinter, 3 years without summer that heralded Ragnarok. Now we know. Those legends began here in 536. The ice doesn't lie. It remembers what we forget. And its message is clear. The sun can vanish at any time. Every apocalypse leaves ghosts, not just the dead, but the dreams they left behind. By 550 AD, the world that existed before the fog had vanished. In its place, something stranger, something darker, something hungry. This is the story of the Ghost Kingdoms, the nations born from starvation and plague, and the ruthless men who carved their names into history with a dagger. Justinian's Rome was a corpse walking. The plague had slaughtered his taxpayers. The volcanic winters had starved his armies. And now, the barbarians were at the gates, not with torches, but with ledgers. The numbers tell the horror. Antioch, once home to 500,000, reduced to rubble. Constantinople's population halved. The Roman gold standard gone. In its place, barter, wheat for nails, wine for a day's labor, hope for nothing at all. This wasn't decline. This was extinction. And from its bones rose new monsters. Meet the new rulers of the world. The Lombards, mercenaries turned kings, seizing Italy while Rome coughed blood. The Slavs, silent invaders who walked into the Balkans and never left. The Visigoths, their kingdom in Spain, now the last flicker of Roman light, but the most terrifying. The Franks, while Rome begged for bread, their king Clovis did the unthinkable. He prospered. How? A simple formula. Convert to Christianity, marry a Roman general's daughter, and when the plague came, burn the sick villages and take their land. This was the new Europe. Not nations, not tribes, just warlords and the dirt they could hold. But one man saw opportunity in the apocalypse. In Constantinople, Justinian's nephew, Justin II, inherited a throne of bones. His solution? A gamble so reckless it defies belief. He bet everything on silk. With Persia collapsing, Justin smuggled silkworm eggs from China. Or so the legend goes. Within years, Byzantine silk became currency. A single robe could buy a village. The East had found its lifeline, but the West? The West had ghosts, and one day they would come knocking. Yet in the shadows, the truly cunning survived. Not kings, not warriors, but monks. In Ireland, scribes like St. Columba hoarded knowledge in stone towers. In Egypt, Coptic Christians buried libraries in desert caves. And in Rome, they did the unthinkable. They recycled. Parchment was so scarce that monks scraped Plato's words from old scrolls to write hymns. For 500 years, Aristotle's lost works survived only as ghostly scratches under psalms. This was the true legacy of 536. Not just empires fallen, but knowledge screaming to be remembered. The apocalypse saved civilization by breaking it beyond repair. Beneath your skin right now, in your blood, your bones, your very being, there are scars from the year 536. Not memories, not stories. Something deeper, something written in the language of life itself. This is the hidden legacy of the worst year in history, and science is just beginning to read it. In 2022, geneticists made a chilling discovery. When they mapped ancient European DNA across centuries, they found something missing. Entire branches of humanity gone, vanished in the mid-6th century. The data showed a population collapse so severe, it altered our gene pool forever. How severe? Some estimates suggest Ireland lost up to 95% of its people. Scandinavia became a genetic desert. In Italy, the average person shared more DNA with their livestock than with their grandparents. This wasn't just death. This was an evolutionary event, and the survivors? They carried mutations we still live with today. Meet ERAP2, the gene that saved your ancestors. In 2023, researchers found that people who survived the Plague of Justinian overwhelmingly carried a special variant of this gene. It supercharged their immune systems, but at a terrible cost. Today, that same mutation makes you 40% more likely to survive sepsis, but also far more vulnerable to autoimmune diseases like Crohn's and rheumatoid arthritis. The price of survival? Your ancestors paid it, you're still paying it. Then there are the famine scars. Studies of Dutch hunger winter babies show starvation alters DNA for generations. Now imagine on 18 years of famine. The mutations from 536 didn't just change individuals, they changed species. Modern Europeans are shorter on average than pre-536 humans, more prone to diabetes, a starvation gene turned against us, even our teeth bear the marks, enamel defects passed down like curses. You might be reading this with the same weak enamel that saved your ancestor from scurvy. The past isn't past, it's in you. Here's the terrible truth. The people who lived through 536 weren't the strongest or the smartest. They were simply the luckiest. Geneticists call it neutral drift. When entire bloodlines survive, not because of advantage, but pure chance. Your existence today isn't destiny. It's a series of accidents. A great-great X40 grandmother who married her cousin, the only man left. A child smuggled into a nunnery when the tax collectors came. A mutation that should have killed, but didn't. We aren't the descendants of kings. We're the children of chaos. Every time you feel an ache in your joints, every time you reach for insulin or arthritis cream, you're touching hands with someone who outlived the end of the world. Right now, as you watch this, 12 volcanoes capable of repeating 536 AD are ticking like time bombs, and one of them, this one, is already 300 years overdue for eruption. This isn't ancient history, this is a countdown. And the question isn't if, but when. Let's game this out with modern science. When, not if, a VEI 7 eruption hits, here's what happens next. Hour 1. Ash blots out the sun over an entire continent. Week 1. Global air travel shuts down. Remember Iceland 2010? Multiply that by 1,000. Month 6. Food riots in every major city as crops fail. Year 2, and the internet collapses under refugee crises and wars over arable land. We're more vulnerable than the 6th century. Back then, only 200 million people needed feeding. Today, 8 billion. And we've built our civilization on just-in-time deliveries that volcanic ash would strangle in days. Meet the doomsday candidates. 1. Taupo, New Zealand. Its last eruption vaporized Lake Victoria. Current seismic activity increasing. 2. Campi Flegrei, Italy. A supervolcano under Naples. Lifted 3 feet since 1953. The unknown 1. Half the V7 eruptions in history came from volcanoes we didn't know existed until they blew. Right now, 500,000 Italians eat dinner directly over a magma chamber 20 miles wide, and the gas emissions last month, highest since 1538. How to survive the next 536. Here's the good news. We can prepare. Unlike our ancestors, we see this coming. The survival checklist starts with food. The Svalbard Seed Vault now stocks 1.2 million crop varieties. Energy. NASA's developing ash-proof drones to restore communications. Medicine. The WHO's plague vaccine stockpile is ready. Yes, plague, rats flee eruptions too. But the real weapon, memory, the reason you're watching this matters more than you know. In 2021, archaeologists found a 6th century Irish grave, a woman buried with a sack of barley seeds, a candle unused, and a slate that read, "Plant when the sun returns." She never saw summer again. But because she prepared, because she believed someone would survive, we're here today. That's why history matters, not to dwell on doom, but to light the way forward. If you want to be part of preserving these lessons, hit subscribe. Every new viewer is another candle against the dark. Together, we keep civilization's flame alive.